Hello, this is a video on how to play Kings in the Corners Solitaire. Not to be confused with the other card game, Kings in the Corners, which is a multiplayer game. This is a single player solitaire game. And so the objective is to place all the face down cards on the board, right? So your jacks, your queens, and your kings, and removing all other cards from the game. And so the game starts with a deck of cards, right? So you take a standard 52 card deck, you'd flip the top card up, and you'd have an empty game board initially. You keep placing the top card of the deck onto the board. After a card has been placed on the board, it cannot be moved to a different slot on the board. And so here's our game board here, right? And so you'd keep in mind you'd want to set up 4 rows of 4 cards, saving the outside edges for the face cards. In each corner, you'd have your kings. On the top and bottom edges, you'd have your queens, and on the left and right edges, you'd have your jacks. And so keep in mind, right, after you place a card, you are not allowed to move it to a different slot on the board. And so kings can only be placed on the corner slots on the board, right? And so if you're playing in real life, just keep track that kings can only be placed on the corner slots of the board. Queens can only be placed in the 2 middle slots on the top and the bottom of the board, as previously stated. Jacks can only be placed in the 2 middle slots in the left and right columns of the board. Numbered cards can be placed in any slot on the board, regardless of how the slot is marked. And this means that the 4 slots in the middle are you can place numbered cards in them, but do note that if the 4 slots in the middle are occupied, you still have slots on the board to fill, you must place the cards you draw from the stock onto any of the marked slots on the board. And so essentially, face-up cards can only go in these places. Numbered cards can either go in the middle or on the edges, and once you place a card, you cannot move it. Right? Sounds simple, and it is really simple. And so let's just play. Let us just play. We'll place that 4 right there. Place that 6. Well, we can't place it there because the 4 is there, and so we'll place the 6 right there. We'll place the 8 right there. Place a king right there. We'll place a jack right there. Place the 2 right there. And so that's how you essentially start out play. And so note that the board's not empty. The board is not empty. And so note that you cannot move cards to a different slot once you place them. And so numbered cards can go anywhere, right? And so do note that you cannot move cards once you place them. And numbered cards can go anywhere, really. And so let's sum it up so far, right? The objective is to get all the face-up cards on the board. Once a card has been placed, you cannot move it. Face-up cards can only go on the edges, while numbered cards can go anywhere. And so let's talk about what happens now. And so once the game board is full, then you can start removing cards. Note that I didn't say you can move cards, I said removing. The rule about not moving cards once you place them still universally applies. You cannot exchange this. Once a card is in a designated slot, it remains in that designated slot unless you remove it. And so you remove cards by selecting pairs whose ranks sum up to 10. And so, for example, an 8 and a 2, right? So an 8 and a 2, you can remove them. An ace and a 9, you can remove them. A 10 by itself, you can remove it. And so what we'll do here is we'll go with an 8 and a 2 here. We'll then go with a 4 and a 6, as well as a 7 and a 3. And so it's pretty easy. Let's sum it up, right? You want to get all the face-up cards on the edges. You can only place face-up cards on the edges. You can place numbered cards anywhere. You cannot move cards between slots. You remove cards by removing pairs that add up to 10, or the card 10 singular by itself. So when you remove all the possible combinations of 10, you then start drawing and placing cards again. And so it's really easy. Really, really easy. And in essence, you actually do have to fill the board before you can begin removing cards. Because otherwise you could remove cards part way through. So notice how we're removing combinations that add up to 10 here. There are no more combinations that add up to 10 left, and so we can keep going. So what adds up to 10 here? This adds up to 10. These two pairs add up to 10. There are no more combinations that add up to 10, and so we resume. Let's see, what adds up to 10? 9 and ace, 4 and ace 6. No more combinations that add up to 10 left on the board. We resume playing. And as you can see, it's pretty easy. And so you lose the game if you draw a face card and all of the possible slots are occupied, right? And so let's say you draw a jack and there are no more slots left on the board for the jack. Then you lose the game. Or if your board is full and you have no available pairs that add up to 10. And so essentially, if you draw a face card, right, then and there are no slots available, then there are no moves possible, and so you lose. Or if your board is full and there are no pairs that you can remove, well then there are no possible moves, and therefore you lose. You win when all the face cards are in their places and the stock is empty. This means that all the face cards must be placed in the correct slots along the edges of the board, and all other cards must have been placed on the board and successfully removed. And so you can see here there are no more possible moves, right? Because we cannot place this face-up card anywhere, and so we have lost. So that sums up how to play Kings in the Corners Solitaire. It's unique. It's quite different, and so remember, face-up cards on the edges. Numbered cards can go anywhere. Once the board is full, you remove cards by removing pairs that add up to 10. And you lose the game when the board is full and you can remove no pairs, or when you have a face-up card that you cannot place. And so in this case, we had a jack that we were unable to place, and so we lost the game. You win the game when not only do you get all the face-up cards on the board, the stockpile is empty. The stockpile is empty when you have placed every other card in the deck on the board and removed it. And so you have to get all the face-up cards on the edges, as well as place every other card on the board and remove it. So that wraps up how to play Kings in the Corners Solitaire, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.